This is Mark. In this video, I'm going to explain bipolar disorder from an animated standpoint. To start out, if we were to consider, let's say, a timeline, I'm gonna call this a neutral axis, and what we can do is we can represent this isn't to a scale, so I'm not drawing this to scale. And this range right here, what I'm defining is this is normality. So this is like a normal mood state. Everyone oscillates between here. So like, let's suppose, someone experienced like this oscillation. Now, the reason I define these limits, these aren't absolute limits. So this is like, we can just call like, let's just say limit 1 in the negative direction. This is limit 1 in the positive direction. Okay, so basically it's always evolving. This distance right here, let's just suppose this is like a height. Okay, screw up right there. So this is a height. Let's just call this h. So what we can do is, if we graphically illustrate this, we can all h, and this is time. So this could actually increase over time. And this distance right here, at a different point, what it represents is that we don't know. Like, when we define this disorder, we define normality based on a reference, which is the neutral axis. This is our reference point. We don't know what the reference point is. It's just, think of like an average, or what we think is an average within a localized region, because this range could differ in different environments, and it's predicated on psychiatric evaluation and whoever's and based on our knowledge. But these disorders, they're real, but there's no, it's not clear cut. It's not exactly precise. We just gauge it. We gauge, where these mood swings are, or where we lie the position. So in terms of bipolar, what we can do is we can define another limit. Let's just call this L2 positive. And we can define, it's not the scale, but L2 negative. So with this region right here, from here to here, indicates depression. Or this is like a low strain of depression, or like a lower dose. Depression exists on the spectrum. We know that, so that's the key. And it could be hypomania. And again, we don't know. Like, so if someone is a position right here, suppose someone is right here, it's going to be more. Does that imply someone has bipolar? Well, not necessarily, in terms of like. Because there's a lot of overlap with different disorders, and like ADHD, it can kind of give you the appearance of hypomania as a superficial view. But with these cycles, if the cycle, a biological cycle, like I'm going to differentiate this real quick. So we have a biological cycle. So this is a biological. So biological cycle. So naturally, it tends to be it could go higher or lower at certain times and so forth. But it's the key is it's smooth plus continuous. So the key word right here is it's a smooth cycle. It's controlled, or typically smooth. It's not as volatile as let's just say this is, we can denote external cycle, because we want to differentiate. This is external cycle. So this can be very unpredictable. So it's very volatile. it could be all over the place, scattered. And this is like this is the range. So this is like this axis represents like mood, and we can just do this axis is mood. If we could quantify mood, and it's very volatile. So this is volatile plus continuous. So both clear cut and continuous. Well, in terms of the duration of a given day, and it's interesting because the biological cycle depends on so like this we could say it depends on hormones, diurnal cycle, blood sugar cycle. So we could just call this hormone cycle, sleep cycle, eating cycle, and the pattern here, these are all cycles that are consistent, but the smoothness really depends on a lot of factors. It depends on health, longevity, also depends on equilibrium, our body's ability to attain equilibrium. So I kind of explained that and how it ties into bipolar. But this external cycle depends on many other external factors that are outside of our control. So when it comes to hypomania and so forth, so like right here, I drew this. This would be mania. So this is like chaos and so forth. This is like we could just call this like deep depression. So it's a spectrum. So like we could call this a spectrum. So this is like the neutral axis, and then we have something like in the positive direction. This is the negative direction. So we can call hypomania. And then, so from here to here, I kind of drew this from here to here. We say normality. So hypo exists here, and then mania, so forth. And then right here is depression. And then deep depression. Deep depression right there. So it's a long spectrum, and depending on where we land, like if someone lands here, we could attribute that to potential bipolar. It could be over here, and it could also be like we're always moving, but really when we associate bipolar versus other disorders, it has a clear biological component. It has a cyclic pattern, and the cyclic pattern of oscillation doesn't have much influence due to external factors. So if you take all the external factors out of the equation, the mood is going to continue to oscillate and freely between either hypomania and depression or mania and depression and so forth. So what I think about bipolar, how it's kind of originates, is we have something called, I like to think of an atom, an atomic molecule. So there's electrons right here, and their affinity, there's an affinity towards the nucleus. This has a mass. So the affinity or force is proportional to mass. So basically it feels like a vector. So this is like masses increase. So and this is like the it's not necessarily linear, but this is why we have gravity, because we have the Earth has a core. So like if we draw the Earth, and the center of the Earth has a core, very dense. So this is a dense core. And in gravity, where, you know, your gravity's radially projected, so forth. So I like to think of bipolar as like, think of like a, this is like equilibrium. And let's say there's an oscillation. Make it smooth. And we don't know necessarily, the oscillations is not, this isn't clear cut, but there's a force. The body naturally wants to tend towards this equilibrium zone. It doesn't want to shift too much energy. So this takes a lot of energy. So this distance right here, we can call this as a, this is a distance. This is a, so think of a distance. So if we plot and we represent distance and energy. So the distance, if you think of it, the distance is larger. It takes immense amount of energy. That's why, like, depression, I like to think of as a recharge, a period of hibernation. So with this case, therefore, if the distance is larger, more energy is exerted. So there's a linear, it's not necessarily linear, it could be like exponential. We don't really know the relation, but it's a direct relation depending on the circumstances. And so therefore, you know, this is like the distance right here. And what this does is it breaks equilibrium. Think of equilibrium, I like to think of it like a, you have a diamond, for instance. Diamond, characteristics. Characteristics of, horrible spelling, of a diamond. Very hard and few planes of weakness. So it's extremely hard, right? So it's very hard to break. It takes a lot of energy. Therefore, a lot of energy to break bond. So vibration, if you induce a lot of vibration or energy, you know, it's going to take a ton of energy to break that. But so therefore, energy. So with this relation, we're focusing on energy, and essentially what's happening here is all these energy shifts right here are creating a break from equilibrium. So therefore, the higher the distance, it's going to cause even more disconnect. And that's why it precipitates mania. You got to find ways to minimize or dampen the cycle. Otherwise, it's going to become even more volatile and more hard to control. So it's very key that to sustain these forces that pull towards the neutral or equilibrium axis. And to do so, the biggest way to dampen cycle, because there's no way, we can't really get rid of, to dampen cycle. So of course meds, and this is like trial and error too. And not all, a lot of meds cause problems. So research is very important. But if mania to me is like a state of chaos. So meds are generally just, anything can dampen a manic episode, or an antipsychotic would be important. But also routine is critical. This is a critical. And the reason for this is you need to balance all cycles to prevent too many shifts in energy, or let's say energy shifts, because energy shift is proportional to the bond. So if bond strength, so if bond strength is proportional to the force, So the force is just like the inward force towards equilibrium. This is like a force, F. So bond strength is proportional to force. We can conclude that this implies that less energy shifts of lower magnitude equates to higher bond strength over time. So this is like recharge. So essentially, so like if you do energy shifts, so if we do energy shifts, more energy shifts means this is like bond strength. More energy shifts equals less bond strength. So if the energy shifts increase, it's going down. So it's like going like down like this. Probably at more of an exponential decay. So this is like a exponential decay. So it's approaching like maybe some limits. Which is this is like we think of disequilibrium. So that's like a severe case. So energy shifts like drinking, doing drugs, doing all these things, not sleeping well, you're precipitating the bipolar disorders. What I mean by bond strength is just the forces, natural force that drags towards equilibrium. These is proportional to bond. It's like an analogy. But yeah, this is kind of how I think of bipolar from a mathematical standpoint as well. And I think, or anyone who exhibits bipolar disorder, it's very important to limit and follow a routine or a schedule. Of course, over time, it takes some time. It's never immediate or instantaneous. But over time, this will reinforce the strength, and you're not like you're going to be like a diamond and reach that point when you're back to a absolute normality. But even a small percentage of change in a positive direction is good. So that's just my viewpoint. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.